if is so embedded in our minds as well as our English language, it would be hard to speak without using the word if. Many of us have lived our lives based on if. Notwithstanding the faulty and loose translation and transliteration in the Bible, we discover the word if. The 11th chapter, and I encourage you to read it when you get home, the 11th chapter of John. Jesus receives a message from his dear friends Mary and Martha. He was very close to Mary and Martha, and Jesus spent his free time relaxing with Mary and Martha. It was only natural that he had a close relationship with their brother Lazarus. It was Mary who anointed Jesus' feet with expensive perfume and washed his feet with her hair. They were close. These two sisters, Mary and Martha, sent a message to Jesus that his friend Lazarus was sick. The text says, Lord, he whom you love is sick. This would signify that Jesus had a very close and dear relationship with Lazarus. Jesus loved Lazarus, and because Jesus had such a close and dear relationship with Lazarus, I would presume that once Jesus heard that he was sick, he would have stopped what he was doing. He would have called Delta, ran and jumped on the train, called a cab, hitched a ride, and just started running to see about his friend. But the text says, and we've studied it before, that Jesus intentionally stays 2 more days where he was after receiving the message. And it appears that Jesus' estimation of Lazarus' condition differs from those around him. When Jesus receives the message, he says to his disciples, this sickness is not unto death, rather for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified. In other words, the greater purpose of Lazarus' condition was not death, but that God would get the glory. Perhaps it is with this understanding that Jesus delays his arrival 2 days. And it is interesting to note that Jesus intentionally delays his arrival to see about Lazarus long enough for Lazarus' status to change from illness to death. Now when Jesus finally shows up after Lazarus had been dead for 4 days, and you have to understand how they thought in antiquity. When somebody died, it was their belief that the spirit or the soul hovered over the body for 3 days. And that's why, if you notice, we have the word wake. You go to someone's wake. Well, wake actually started because people before they had medical advancement, but also mixed with superstition, that people would come and sit and let him watch the body to make sure that they were actually dead. And after a certain amount of time, they could proceed on with the funeral and the burial. But during this time, they believed that once someone died, that the spirit hovered over the body for 3 days. And there was some possibility that they could be resurrected or brought back to life. But Jesus stays long enough for any possibility of Lazarus being resurrected again, and then he shows up. Right. It seems like it's too late. But when Martha, the sister of Lazarus, found out that Jesus was on his way, she went and met him and confronted him. And I could imagine that she was frustrated and irritated. Listen to what Martha says to Jesus. Are you listening this morning? Yeah. She said, Jesus, look at it when you get home. If word. I wish I had a preacher if you had been here, my brother would not have died. I told you earlier, I believe that the word if is the weakest word in the English language. It is not a creative word. It does not create a circumstance for something to happen. If is a supposition based on uncertain possibilities. She said, Jesus, if you had been here, my brother Lazarus would not have died. I got 3 things for you before I take my seat. First of all, as we discovered already, hindsight is 20/20. And Martha, like most of us, had 20/20 hindsight. She was focused on past circumstances. She was able to evaluate past circumstances more clearly. She was right. If Jesus had been there, then her brother would not have died. But her if, listen to this, was not in God's plan. My brothers and sisters, it's hard to accept the reality that your if is not in God's plan. And some of you have to come to terms with that, because we look back over our lives and we say, well, if I would have done say, don't worry about the ifs. God brought you through it. Don't worry about the ifs in your life, what could have and what should have. Everything that happened has brought you to the place where you are, where you can lift your hands and you're stronger and you're wiser and you're better because of what God brought you through. Don't waste your time concerned with ifs in your life. There are a lot of ifs in life. But this if she had to accept was not a part of God's plan. In fact, as his disciples struggled with Lazarus' death, Jesus told them, for your sake, I'm glad that I was not there, that you may believe. Our visual acuity is best when looking in the past. Hindsight is 20/20. That's the first thing. But secondly, and more importantly, foresight ought to be 20/20. Martha says to Jesus, if, somebody shout if, you had been here, my brother Lazarus would not have died. She had faith, watch this, for the past. She knew that Jesus could have prevented Lazarus from dying. And as she is in a conversation with Jesus, she realizes that she not only has faith for the past, but she also has faith for the present. Can I help somebody this morning? Because this is where most of us get stuck, right here in this place. We have enough faith to believe what could have happened. Are you with me this morning? In the past, but not enough faith to believe what can happen in the present. I came to help somebody this morning. We have enough faith to discuss about what could have happened in the past, but not enough faith to discover what can happen right now.